Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Independent Publishers of New England weekly broadcast on issues of interest to anyone involved in the independent publishing industry, particularly here in New England. With us today, we have Jennifer Nelson, a wonderful, friendly, brilliant graphic artist who built her career in the children's book industry, and she's designed over 100 books in that field, and is currently working more as a facilitator. And she hires illustrators and works with illustrators and coordinates lots of different things in the illustration field. One of those areas is working with independent book publishers and authors. She's won the Parents' Choice Awards, and in 2011, she started representing artists in different fields. So welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I understand that I can't read questions from you guys directly today, but I'll do my best with Karen.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. So would you like to show us, you were showing me earlier some of the books that you had worked on, and beautiful, beautiful pieces of art. So if you'd like to show us a couple of those, that would be great.
So my experience as a graphic designer, I was just looking for one more book. Is it too weird for me to go get it? It's in the other room.
No, go ahead. I'll talk about graphic illustration.
One second.
Okay. Okay, Jennifer will be right back. Her illustrations are gorgeous. They're beautiful, and she has worked both in terms of book design with the Big Five publishers and also with independent publishers. She's going to talk to us today about the process of working with illustrators. For illustrators working with authors, and authors and publishers working with illustrators, as well as kind of the licensing requirements involved, the seasonal things. That's fine, Jennifer. Okay, have you got your lovely book there for us?
So yes, I do. So my career, I started out, well, a long time ago. I'm a graphic designer by training, and most of my career as a graphic designer was spent designing products and books, primarily for kids. So I'll show you a few examples from that time. The first one is a self-published book by a woman named Teresa Liu, a Massachusetts resident. And this book actually won a Parents' Choice Award, and it's a cookbook. The idea is that it's full of recipes and activities for kids to do, and it's fully illustrated. Let's see if I can. So there's like a little section that shows you the process and how to make the recipe. The kids encouraged to take notes or make little drawings.
Great.
Photographs of the final product. And then all the steps, like if something happens, what could you do to fix it? And then photographs and so forth of all of the things. And then there's an illustration. All this work was done by John Cannell. He's a wonderfully talented person. And I did this book, I don't know, probably 2010 or something, but that's that book.
Wonderful. It's beautiful. I definitely get that from my nephew.
This is another one that won a lot of really great awards. This is another activity book. Both of these books are spiral bound so that they lay flat and a kid can draw in them. So this is a book about Rangoli. It's an Indian art form where people make a design in the ground and then they pour colorful sand into it.
Wow.
So this is sort of what the book looks like.
Beautiful.
Not great for showing you a lot of stuff.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful work.
It goes into teaching a kid sort of step by step how to make a drawing and then giving them space to do their own. And it's about 100 pages or so. And just a colorful, pretty fun book. And that was done by a self-publisher in California.
Great. Wow, two very beautiful examples of the types of things that people are working on now.
Thank you.
What would you, no, go ahead. Yeah.
So then the other thing I just pulled from the other room is a magazine series that I did. This was for 12-year-old girls called Kiki Magazine. and it's all about fashion. But the thing that's really, it's a subscription. It comes out quarterly, and the cool thing about it is it really shows girls who are interested in fashion about how to make things. So
Great.
you see, a lot of my career was a lot of how-to and getting kids involved in stuff. And so there was like, you know, how to make this funny skirt, or how to, I don't know, sort of journal.
Right.
Then they take kids on like little tours of what a trade show, an apparel trade show might be like.
Fantastic. I would have loved that as a 12-year-old.
That's the graphic design part of my career.
Okay.
Now, since 2011, I am what's known as an artist agent.
Okay.
And I represent, why don't I do a share?
Okay, that would be lovely. You represent a number of different artists, as I understand.
I do. So I represent 7 artists. We're a pretty small company, but I like it that way. Can you see?
Good.
Can you see the website?
Yes. Beautiful.
So each one of these, they all happen to be women. That's just a coincidence. Each one of them has a very distinct style, and many of them have worked on book projects that I'll show you later. But we also are involved in things like creating artwork that goes on products. So everything from journals or stationery, greeting card type things, as well as we even have a suitcase, beach towels, pretty much clothing, pretty much any place that you can imagine art on a product. We represent artists, bedding, in those different industries.
Okay.
Then I'll give you, so if anybody's interested, you can look up our URL. It's JenniferNelsonArtist.com.
All right.
There's a lot of work within each one of these. You can see tons and tons of examples. And if you check out our blog, you'll find out about our newest artist that joined us.
Okay, wonderful. And I've looked at your blog. You've got some really, really beautiful work there. So
I love my job so much.
and it shows. It really does show. So for anyone who's listening, even if you're not interested in book design, I'd suggest looking through some of the artwork. It's just inspirational, fun, positive, playful.
It's very fun. So this is our Instagram feed. We have almost 45,000 people, which is exciting.
Wow. Wow, 45,000. That's great.
Yeah, and you guys, there's a small home business in Arlington, Mass. There's nothing too fancy going on here except for a lot of hard work.
Okay.
So here's some examples of products that were created by the artists for different clients. This is a greeting card. This is a beach towel, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And this is artwork that's used on tea towels and such.
Okay.
Here are some cards, and then we just had a big announcement of a new person. So maybe I'll stop the screen share and I'll show you.
Okay, I'd like to, just before you go to the next section, I'd like to mention that one of our board members, who has just recently published an award-winning book called Artists Tilly, she's going to be joining us next week, used her book is basically about a piratess who takes her fleet of pirates around the oceans, and they go to the Galapagos Island and they save a bunch of baby turtles from pirates. It's a great book, beautifully illustrated. It's all written in haiku. And when the tall ships came to Portsmouth a few weeks ago, or a month ago or so, she banner. I think she had mugs. So I think, that's probably something that you're moving into now, is that sort of, I think that's happening in the independent publishing market, is having not only the illustrations for the book be important, but the illustrations for products associated with the book. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that to listeners. Okay. So you were saying? So
I'm going to turn off my share if I think that makes sense. Okay. We can always go back to it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, hold on, I have to figure out how to stop sharing.
No, you did. It's you now. Okay. It's your beautiful face.
It's actually what you just mentioned, artwork that's made for books, but also made for products that go with the book. That is what's known as art licensing.
Okay.
That's the bulk of what I do. So an art license um, is a fee that's paid for art for specific use of time, specific product, and in a specific area of the world. So, for example, you might have a book illustrator who illustrates the book, and that's one license of the use of the work.
Okay.
If you wanted to make a stuffed animal, you'd go back to that illustrator, pay an additional fee, which could be a royalty or it could be a flat fee for stuffed animals, for distribution, maybe in the UK for 2 years. Okay. So there's multiple ways that an artist who owns the copyright to her work or his work can make money, residual money, off of artwork that was already created. Unless sometimes artwork is done on a work for hire basis, and they relinquish all those rights. But I do not encourage that. As I'm an artist agent, I don't encourage that very often.
Okay, that's brilliant. And you just brought me up to my next question, which is what are important things for artists who work in the publishing field? What should they keep in mind as they're working with different authors and different publishers? What would you suggest to
that the authors keep in mind, or the
well, both, that the authors who and the publishers who want to work with artists, what should they keep in mind, and what should the artists who would like to work in
let's tackle the authors first. I can show you some examples.
Okay, great. So, thanks.
This is, I don't even know if you can see it. This is one pile of some of the work from the illustrators.
Okay.
We have a big pile, right?
Yes, you do.
And we've only been, this agency's only been around for 18 months. It's fair. Wow. So I'll show you an example. Here's a book about weather. This is done by Jill McDonald. This is just amazingly charming work. And you can see the detail.
Beautiful.
It's fantastic. I'll put it really close.
Great.
So what an author would be looking for, who hired Jill, was somebody who could take a character or a storyline and continue it throughout. So the color palette remains consistent. If it was a character-driven book, you would want somebody who could show a variety of facial expressions, body positions, moods. So basically what a character might do.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's one of the things. If you want to look for somebody who has work that shows that they can carry a character. One thing that can be confusing, especially to a kid, is if the character looks one way on one page and on the next page it's maybe a distorted perspective, or there's something about it that's not quite perfect, it takes away from the concentration on the storyline.
Ah, interesting.
You also can have an illustrator who works in a very flat manner. Lee Brown, she's one of my illustrators. It's not that everything has to be done with a hyper perspective, but you want this consistency to go throughout your book. If you show
okay. Okay, great. Thanks. And what? Go ahead.
Your next question was, what should an illustrator look for?
Right.
So an illustrator is going to, first of all, they're going to look for a storyline that appeals to them, because so much of what an illustrator does is really about their joy for the subject matter. And
okay.
If they have that, it is expressed through the artwork. If it's something that's not appealing, a book project is a big project. It's not a small project. Then it's hard to maintain a good style or a good sensibility. So I think that one of the first things that an illustrator would look for would be a storyline that was appealing to them, and then they would be looking for a financial arrangement that was lucrative to them in the immediate and also perhaps in the distant future. So
okay, that's a very pertinent point, and I think there's a lot of confusion surrounding that. How much should an author or a publisher set aside to pay for a good illustrator for, let's say, a children's book designed for kind of 7- or 8-year-olds that's 25 pages long, for example? I know that's, you know, still not specific enough.
It's very difficult to say, because it's going to depend on, it's going to depend on the complexity of the subject matter. So some of the books here. So here's one. This is a little book. It's incredibly simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the artwork for this, while it's joyful and it's amazing, this is much more simple in terms of the amount of time that it took versus that image, that book that we just.
Right. I remember the incredibly detailed, rich colored.
Right?
Yes.
So this is, as you can imagine, a lot more work. So it's difficult to say. There's also different types of art. You might have just a little spot piece of art on one page, say especially a book with a lot of text, and then you might have the next page might be a full spread. So I hate to hedge around the price, but there's so many variables you just can't quite say.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, a few questions that we have from viewers is, imagine, what do manufacturers look for in terms of both subject matter and current style trends?
What do manufacturers look for in, say it again?
In subject matter and in style trends.
Well, in terms of books, I think it's difficult to say. My experience in kids' books would be they look for a lot of storyline that talk about friendship, inclusion, setting a goal and achieving. So it's all very positive sort of reinforcement. And a lot of books talk about community and talk about maybe making friends with people that are different from you. And that might manifest itself in something like a story about a cat who's best friends with a worm. You know, that wouldn't possibly happen, but in a kid's imagination, it's especially on the, say, 7 and under group, that's a really popular way to get across messages. In surface design, which is the other big chunk of my business, subject matter-wise, manufacturers are looking for Christmas imagery because so much Christmas product is sold every year. And also florals, because it can be applied to so many different types of products.
Okay, 2 more questions. One is, what's your typical day, or what are your typical challenges that you face as you're working with artists and helping them to face kind of the business world?
Wow. Let's see.
It's a big one, yeah.
It's funny. I don't think I have a typical day.
Okay.
I sort of mapped out a schedule for myself. My responsibilities include promoting the artist. So that's why we have this big number on Instagram. And we go to trade shows and we send out postcards and we do a lot. So every single day there's promotional work in social media and in cold calls that happens. But there's also another aspect of my responsibility is reading contracts and negotiating fees. So the artists who work with me can rely on me to be their sort of business end. But I don't go into an agreement without their approval. I really see myself as somebody who works for the artist. So I might come to them and say, you know, this client would like for you to do this book for $5,000. I think that it's worth $750 or $7,500, and I'd like to negotiate to that fee. Are you okay with $5,000? And so there's sort of a back and forth that happens.
Okay.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Every day is really different, is my point. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. It's your field is fascinating to me. Really, it's just so multifaceted. Another question is, how does licensing work for artists in the book industry?
So artwork typically that's made for a book is so specific. You could, like if we were just looking at the weather book here, this piece of art perhaps could be resold and made into a card, or it could be maybe made into something else. But most of the time, the content is specific to a book. So where licensing comes into play in the book world is for spin-off products. So it could be promotion of the book. So say maybe the book gets picked up and made into a movie, Or in the case of your friend with the turtles, maybe there's a whole line of stuffed animals, or there's maybe little activity books that go along. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Sometimes there's education, because a lot of schools are looking for material that's outside of the curriculum. So there's sort of this secondary market of books that are meant to support. Like I did some activity books for Sports Illustrated Kids. Those were not in the core curriculum of schools, but they were still purchased to be an ancillary, a sport. So there's so many markets to books. But,
Okay, great, thanks. And another question that I have from me is, you mentioned earlier that you were going to be involved in the book expo. Would you like to say something about that?
Yes, so I don't go to that show anymore because we already go to 4 shows. But that is a great show. For years, it was in New York at the Javits, and I think this year they changed it to Chicago. But it's a fantastic trade show that's loaded with, every single publisher has the big ones have giant big booths, and then there's little tiny ones also for the smaller publishers, and it's a great opportunity as an author to go around and really study the competition and talk to people and understand what it is that they're looking for and what it is that they're selling. And I would encourage almost anybody to visit that show in particular, because it gives you a very, very broad view of what's happening in the marketplace.
Okay,
So
wonderful.
I think it's been moved. I know this year it was in Chicago, but if it's in New York, for sure, it's such an easy trip. You should go.
Okay, great. We are in New England.
I don't know where we'll be in 17. I didn't look it up.
Okay, and you mentioned that you go to, you're planning 4 different, participating in 4 different shows this year. Which are those?
Well, so most of those have to do with the other side of our business, which is the surface design. So
okay,
we show, say, and there'll be manufacturers there that want artwork to go on pots, or artwork that goes on in stationery type of things. So we have a show in May called Surtex. It's really the biggest one for my section of the industry. And then we go to blueprint shows. There's one actually coming up in August in New York. All of them are in New York, which is interesting. There's an art licensing show that's in Vegas, but it's in the summer and it's really hot, and it's not, I don't know, it's not been a great show for us. And then there's another one that's called Print Source, and that one we typically, actually there's 5 shows. We typically go to that one in January, and another one in January that we go to is at the Atlanta Gift Show, where that one we don't exhibit at, but we walk and we get you're seeing all the manufacturers with their showrooms because they're selling to retailers, and we get this huge view of what's happening, similar to what I'm talking about with if you visit Book Expo.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. And we're running out of time now, but before we sign off, is there anything else that you'd like to mention that we haven't discussed today? Anything that you think might be of interest to anyone in the world of independent publishing in New England?
Oh my gosh. I would say, that this is a really fun, and it can be a pretty lucrative business. And it's important that you do your research and that you keep your mind really open. As a professional who represents illustrators, I think that it's very smart to hire an illustrator like you would a professional, any other type of professional. And be patient. Books take a long time. They do. And one of those books that I showed you back there took about 6 months of really intense work. So, keep in mind there's some pace. And the best things come for those who wait, I think. And also, I should say that when you pass off your manuscript to the illustrator, it's not like it's completely gone. There's stages of sketches, book layout, and then sketches, and then revisions, and then finals. So you're very much involved the whole way through, or you should be.
Yeah, I think that the key point there is you should be. And wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you, and also just very, full of information. I've learned a lot from the last half hour from speaking with you. So, and thanks so much for being so patient as we set this up. I have to say, for anyone who wants to work with Jennifer Nelson, she is just the goddess of patience. And believe me, we've tested her patience here in the last couple of weeks. So she's a wonderful person to work with. Obviously, Jennifer has an incredible knowledge of the field of design and book design, which we're interested in here in IPNY. So thanks again, Jennifer. It was great having you on.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. And if
Great.
questions that come up along the way, you can forward them on to me and I'll reply through Karen.
Okay, wonderful. So again, this week we've been speaking with Jennifer Nelson, who is book designer, graphic artist, and she works with illustrators. Next week we'll be speaking with Elizabeth Lorraine, the author of Piratus Tilly. She's a member of the board of directors of IPNY, and she's just produced her book, which has won a couple of awards already. So, and after that, we have a long lineup of people who will be joining us over the summer. So thank you very much for listening, and we hope to see you again sometime very soon here on Ask the Experts, IPNY's weekly broadcast, where we discuss issues of interest to people in the independent publishing industry in New England. Okay, bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.